Was the question audible to all?
No.
No. The gentleman reminding me that I'd said that a belief in God would entail a belief in the, let's call it for now, the Christian God, the loving creator God, would involve submitting yourself to permanent surveillance, supervision before you were born and after you were dead. Reminds me again that we are rule-bound as it is by matters such as gravity and the laws of physics. And he says, what do I make of that? Well, the laws of gravity don't apply to you after you're dead, whereas the laws of the Christian God do, the laws of the Muslim God do. That would be the first distinction. The second is that there are indeed laws from which no one's exempt, but they don't require a permanent intrusion into your privacy or a permanent verdict upon your personal behavior or the threat that nothing you do will ever be exempted from a judgment. So those are as different from, those are as arbitrary compared to the laws of physics, I think, as anything could be. It's just two different senses of the word law. The question for me would rather be, this being the case, why do I care? Why do I, so to speak, why do I bother? That's a very good question. It also doesn't have any conclusive answer. What if it's random? Then why be interested?
Right over here. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm invited to be unpleasant at the expense of Ayn Rand. and objectivism. Well, that's easy. Well, the novels. First, I mean, as I keep trying to say that, you know, in my view, there's more morality in a novel by George Eliot than there is in any of the four Gospels, or the four of them put together. I care very much about literature as the place where the real dilemmas, ethical dilemmas, are met and dealt with. So to have novels as transcendently awful as Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead sort of undermines my project. And then, though I have some respect for the virtue of Selfishness, a collection of essays, and I've argued about them with the chairman of the Federal Reserve, as a matter of fact. By the way, a state Federal Reserve bank is not part of the libertarian program. Though Mr. Greenspan seems a bit iffy about this self-evident proposition. I don't think there's any need to have essays advocating selfishness among human beings. I don't know what your impression has been, but some things require no further reinforcement. You know. Reminds me of Lillian Hellman was once in her declining years talking at some campus, and she would peer out over the crowd with her very thick dark glasses, and there was a squawking question from somewhere in the back, said, "Ms. Hellman, why haven't you endorsed gay rights?" And Lillian Hellman sort of blearily peered again through and drew herself up and said, "Well, I wonder what word I'm allowed to use in this august company." I'll quote her directly then. She said, "The forms of fucking do not require my endorsement." I wasn't that much of a fan of Miss Hellman. She could be a real bitch, but I thought that said it more or less all. So to have a book strenuously recommending that people be more self-centered seems to me, as the Anglican Church used to say in its critique of Catholicism, a work of supererogation. It's too strenuous.
Let's open it up to others, and let's start with Jim Peters.
Well, I think, finally, I disagree with you, but it's been a delightful afternoon.
Thank
and
you.
You are the most pleasant person dealing with unpleasant things that I think I've ever seen, so I think you have a gift for that.
I was trying to work out if that's a compliment or not. Well, let's see.
I think you understood.
Bring it on, bring it on.
I will try to articulate one point of agreement, which I think you're absolutely dead right objection to you is going to take two different routes finally. But I think you would also, being an honest person, admit that many dark things have been done in the name of man and in the name of reason. And thus I suspect that the kind of argument you're constructing against religion is going to come back and leave you with really no basis to uphold the ethics of reason that you want one to uphold, though I suspect it. I also think if you want what I think you're calling evidence or religion, which I think I agree with you is not there in the sense that you are looking for it, but I don't think in your worldview you're going to find evidence, really, for the ethic that you're defending that I, in many ways, agree with. So I'd like to know, I think, two things. If it's not the case that if religion, in your mind, is such a negative thing because of the often atrocious track record that it has in history, if based on that, you're not left, one, with really having to say the same thing about reason. And so, with the French Revolution and the rational programs of social cleansing we've seen since the Enlightenment, it seems to me that though I admire your view of tolerance, that you don't have anywhere in your own worldview to really support it. I'd love to hear your response.
I think I could relay that response, but I'm hoping it was audible to all good. You have a splendidly carrying voice, Professor. Well, from the philosophical pessimist point of view, the darkest suspicion is the one I began with, what's located near there, that God is the creation of man, right? Man created God as an image, not the other way around. Consider the implications of this. They're just as bad as the other way around. What kind of God creates the kind of psyche and body that we have, and the readiness to chauvinism and panic and the cruelty that we manifest, and the fact that our prefrontal lobes are so small and our adrenaline glands are much too big, and our urinogenitory arrangements so conducive to obscenity and so forth. Well, the same is true if it's man doing the creating. Monsters may well be created that way too. There's no way around that. You're quite right. I gave the instance of North Korea because I saw there a metamorphosis from what had at one point been a very Spartan communist atheist party state with a very strong leader cult, strong leader worship, into something that has now become fully devotional as a system. It is now a church, North Korea. Obviously, the figures of Stalin and Hitler are partly created by superstitious people who want to have an absolute leader who they can trust, worship, and thank all the time, and who think that's pleasurable. This is man-made as well as man-imposed, of course. And Thomas Paine, who is one of my personal, I don't have any icons or heroes I try not to have, but Thomas Paine, who's I think one of the most lucid writers on this, pointed out very early on that when the French Revolution nationalized the church and took its property, it wasn't separating church from state. It was making the state and the church fuse. And so if you have a goddess of reason enshrined in the church formerly of Notre Dame, all you've done is change the icons around a bit. And you'll soon get the same credulous people making the same pilgrimages. All of this is true, and we're stuck with it. We are a partly rational, poorly evolved species. But you asked me for the encouraging bit. It would be this. I would wager, I hope I'm not wrong in this, everyone in this room understood everything I said this afternoon. I didn't want them to agree. I don't try and make them agree. I don't care if they agree. The hell with you if you don't agree. I don't mind. But I bet you nothing I said was unintelligible. I mean, people could see what it would be like to believe what I believe, I think. Not a very strong claim to make.